Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Modern Day Goddess Podcast. I am Solé. This is Ciara, and we wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about today the theme of your energy is not public access. And I think that that's a really important theme on the path because I think the more that you get in tune with your own energy and start to learn what that means and the power of your energy, the more you have to then kind of master it in the external reality and especially with other people. And I know that that poses a pretty big challenge for a lot of people because once you know your energy and your ability to use it for the greater good, it can be easy to kind of overdo that. Not to mention just the kind of the assumption of society that you're going to be sort of hyper available and hyper present. And what we're learning and what you learn on the path is how to really master the art of using your energy in a way that is helpful, but preserving it for yourself first and foremost.
Yeah, beautifully said. I feel like as women, our default is to just give and give and give. And when anyone in our community is struggling, it's like let's put ourselves like kind of like sacrifice ourselves so much to the point where we want to help. And then as a healer, we have so much divine insight coming through that we want to share it with the world. Like we can tune in to every single nick and cranny of why someone is struggling and we can give them the exact feedback that their soul needs, but it comes to a detriment sometimes because it's not always welcome. It's not always the time for you to share that wisdom. And just because you have access to it, you have to learn how to conserve it and just sit with it. And especially as a channel, like you have to be able to discern when you are meant to share those truths and those insights and when it's not, like sometimes it's not time yet. But what happens is like if you are always hyper available and you're giving an access, there will be a point of depletion. And that actually happens a lot when women are in their follicular phase and their ovulation phase because there's an abundance of energy. In relation to the seasons, like the follicular is the springtime and ovulation is summer. And if we look at our lives in spring and summer, it's usually when we go out and we're out all the time partying and out at the beach and having a great time. We're more social. But if we overdo that in access, when you are in your luteal phase and in menstruation, you are so depleted because you didn't save any for yourself. But if you take that time when you are feeling overly energetic and excited to actually sit with yourself and like look at yourself in the mirror and give those divine insights to you first, then it will be better distributed into how you show up in the world.
It's kind of the stereotypical like meme of overcommitting when you're like in a good mood. And so people ask you to hang out.
I struggle with that so much.
Me too.
I'm like, damn it, why did I say yes?
Yes. And then the meme of like you being so pissed driving to the thing because you're not in the same space as you were when you said yes and then you're regretting it. And it's exactly what you're describing, right? That like and all people go through, phases or days or whatever it is where you're like in a good space and you're just saying yes to everything. And that's a tough lesson for a lot of people because you can't say yes to everything and you can't be available for everything. In fact, the more you learn energy conservation, the less you're available for, especially in this weirdo world where your energy is just going to get
siphoned, sucked and taken from you and you come home fried every day.
Literally, absolutely. And then to parallel it with, as you were describing, I love that you've brought like the conversation around it being how you use your gifts as well. Because those of us who are energy workers or healers, as Ciara has just described, often feel like we always have to kind of be on. So we just the typical empath is the one who's just always drained by society because they go out into the world and they're so on and they're sponging up, the grocery store with their energetic body and clearing house. And then you just come home so drained and tired and can't exist in the world, like can't even function in the world like properly because they're always on in this way. And so the theme of your energy not being public property means you don't have to always be on. Your gifts do not have to always be on. And that's a really massive, important lesson on this path and as your gifts come online, because you do not owe them to anyone. In fact, the world should be paying you for them, you know? And that's
Mhm.
a controversial thing to say, but that's the truth. Is if you're using your gifts in service to humanity, the least they can do is pay you for the service. Like it's one for one. And furthermore, you know, you get to just be in your humanity whenever you want, you know, meaning that one thing that I used to joke about often is like when I would go out to a party, it would be almost every single time someone would ask me to like circus trick my gift basically. And like,
Yep.
you know, you tell someone, yeah, you know, I work energy for a living. What's my energy saying now? I mean, 9 times out of 10, people are going to ask you. And my response before would be like, you know, I'd have to sit into it and get into it and like, where
Mhm.
now it's like, I'm not reading your energy. Like, I'm not, you know, I'm not always on. I'm not always working. And I'm actually really, you know, not often working for free.
Here's the link to my session
Yeah,
if you would like to book a
literally.
consultation
If you
with
want to
me.
like really do it well, then we can do it well. But like, I'm not always on at a party. I'm not like reading every person's energy and trying to find their like where they're blocked and stuff. Like, why would I do that? First of all, it's kind of judgmental to just be like finding everyone's flaws. And second of all, I'm having fun and I'm enjoying myself and I like want to dance and have a good time. I don't want to be like circus monkey, like, you know, showing my gifts off. And this came to a halt for me one time at a party where like I did give it, you know, give like an energy reading to someone and then he told his bro and like the bro came and like then there's like this line in front of me of people ready for energy readings and I'm like, what is happening here? I'm literally like here to have fun. And I'm not like, you know, and it's cute and I can appreciate it and you can appreciate it. And there's a time and a place. That's what Ciara is saying. There's a time and a place. And only you really know what that means because as the keeper of wisdom or the downloader, I guess, of wisdom, you know, you can see when there's information for someone that they're just not ready for. And that's a really powerful practice of discernment in knowing like even in our sessions like you have to know when someone's ready for certain information and when they're not. You got to put it in your back pocket until they are ready, or maybe you never tell them. Maybe life will tell them. But all in all, you don't always have to be on. You don't owe society your powerful supernatural gifts. You don't have to have anything to prove, and your energy is not for public property.
I love that. And I love that you give the example because sometimes when you do give those insights, it can actually blow up in your face. And I've had that happen where it's very much like at the and my workspace, like everybody knows me as the energy worker and as like the psychic medium. And I was at a table one time and they were all wanting a reading on them. And I redirected them over and over again. I was like, please, like, it's okay. Like, it triggers people. Like, I don't want to do this. And they, like, insisted on it, insisted that they want to get triggered to this day. One of the insights I've shared with that woman still has so much tension with me. Like, she won't even look me in the eyes. It's been a year. So, like, there has to be the right setting. And often, like, I will just redirect them to, like, yeah, you know, I can't really access it unless I'm in the right space for it. And people actually respect the boundary and it teaches them too. And I feel like what happens too is like because we know that we can help someone, like we hear something on the news about like a terminal cancer or just like the war and then we want to go and pray for that. Like I feel like that can be done in the right balance, but you also have to know like what you have energy for because sometimes a big thing that you're praying for, you may be interfering with that soul's journey. I had that even happen too where I had someone ask me to pray for a boy's like recovery from cancer. He had terminal cancer, and when I went to go tap into his soul's journey, he asked to leave. He said that this was his mission and his path. And I even had to transfer that message to her and she was just like, "Yeah, I was feeling that too, but I wanted you to tap into it and tell me something different." And it's really about just having such a deep relationship with yourself when you know, and it will allow you to know when you're meant to show up and when you're not meant to. And it all comes back down to doing the work internally, like the embodiment practice, being grounded and being a human. Like, as a human, we have needs that we need to take care of. We have to feed ourselves healthy foods. Otherwise, our vessel gets distorted and it doesn't work properly. And we need adequate sleep and we need to shower. And you also need energetic hygiene, which requires conservation.
Energetic hygiene is such an important topic. We could do probably multiple episodes on that because
Yes.
it's so not talked about. And, of course, probably a lot of the people will attract in who are listening, or you might consider yourself like an empath. I prefer to say, let's retire the empath, because the empath archetype to me is the one who's like all the things we're describing here, like overly open, very people pleasy, like wanting to help and heal everybody, just kind of caught in the rift of their gift. And the transformation from empath to highly sensitive just says, I'm still a human being and I have these gifts and I know how and when to use them. And so the highly sensitive person is the one who's skillful and, knows the time and the place, uses like master discernment to decide when to, imagine the example you just gave of like reading into someone's soul path that they're ready to go. And then you have to somehow find a way to translate that information and use like the master discernment of like, is this the mom? Is that what you were saying?
Mm-hmm.
Is this mom ready to hear this information, and knowing that she could respond 100 different ways to
And
that?
blame you. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I definitely resonate with that example specifically because, I journeyed my mom home. And of course, as like a healer, I had deep moments of like, why can't I heal her? And yet it was so clear, even from the very beginning of the process, she was ready. And it's a deep, interesting experience to feel that from another soul, especially when it's your mom, but even a kid, like where you're like, wow, there's like this readiness, and that we're not here to shift or alter their path. We're just here to facilitate them in the journey that they're already on. And in the same light, we're not here to play God. And we're here to be human with human gifts and divine gifts and spiritual gifts, but still human. And I think I love that you brought in just being human, like, because so much of this path makes you feel like you're just this ascended master of a being.
And it inflates your ego so much.
Yeah, you have these crazy supernatural gifts, and you can read into people's souls and yada, yada, yada. The list goes on. And there's a humility to remaining in your humanness with it, and to knowing and using your humanity to say, like, actually, I'm partying right now. I don't want to like be reading everybody's energy, or whatever the situation is, where you're still so connected to your humanity that you're not bypassing it. I know we talked in the last episode about like bypassing spiritually, and a lot of that ends up happening when you're deep in your gifts, because you're just so in that kind of this sort of psychic energy of things that you stay there. And so the work then of the empath, of the highly sensitive person, of the healer, of the psychic, of anybody who's really deep in their spiritual gifts, is to be in your body and let the wisdom of your body inform you what's going to work right now, what's going to work later, what you want, what you don't want. There's so much wisdom here. The body is insanely intelligent, and we mustn't bypass that, being so tapped into the 5D that we like forget that we are still this human being with human being needs. And as you were mentioning earlier, using like getting into the guru consciousness where you just platform yourself and you're just above everybody and you have no human needs. Like, that's not like, to me, you got to come back down from that. You have to come back down from that. You have to be a functioning human being in society who, bring your spiritual wisdom, but like still treat people well, and like treat yourself well, and show up and be in relationship with people and things, because relationships are such great teachers. But don't let your connection to your own energetic body and to your spiritual gifts end up just bypassing you from the joy and the quality of being human.
I love that. And I think it's about working in relationship with God too, like not seeing yourself above God, because there is a divine authority at play here, and there are things that are just absolutely written for you and your path. And even with these godly powers, like, we still don't have full control over reality. And when you have that relationship with God, it gives you the governance on how to work with someone's journey and that path. And so it's having that relationship in meditation, or however you connect with the divine. And it doesn't even need to be called God. Like, it could be the universe, it could be the goddess, it could be whatever feels most resonant to you. Like, we don't ever want to place anyone in a box with how they connect and they channel, but it's a really big weight to bear, to think that you have control over everything and to take responsibility for other people's healings. Like, that's so heavy, babe. Like, no, like, we got to set that down. And like you said, just really embrace the humanness of this path and this journey. And what Soleil and I both have found, like the more we became human and like inserted ourselves into the world. I mean, we used to just love just being at home, and like both of our paths parallel in just how much time we've spent in isolation. But now a big part of our work is like being out in the world and building relationships and having a podcast where we're sharing these insights, and we are having so much more success with our work as spiritual healers than we did when we were just in isolation. So that's the biggest part of your path, but you have to be able to wield that energetic discernment really well.
It's so true, because my plan B has always been find a cave somewhere remote and live there. Now it sounds fantastic.
And then we still feel that way sometimes because it's pretty hard.
It is absolutely hard to be a multidimensional being in the matrix. Like, let's be really real. It's extremely hard. And it is much easier to just tuck yourself away in a cave and just connect, meditate all day long and om your way into nirvana. And that's not real life, you know? And I think both of our journeys took us through periods of pretty deep isolation, and there's a time and a place for that. And in fact, it's an important part of the journey is to like break off your energy from the external world, so you know what your energy even feels like. Because so many people, especially the empathetic people, are ones who just like know themselves in relationship to others and know themselves in reflection of success or whatever it is, or their gifts or their ability to help people. But who are you underneath that when it's just you? And so the reclamation of your own energy and your energetic body that happens in solitude is quite necessary. And it for me, like, was one of the most important parts of my journey, was when I was like living out of a suitcase, like not hardly had a cell phone, no social media, no boyfriend, no nothing, just deep in who am I and how can I help? And I had to then transition out of that. I would have been happy to stay there, happy to. Some days I still wish, you know. And I knew that my journey and my mission was bigger than that. And if I really was going to affect change, I needed to do it in a real way and as a real human being in real society and doing real things as humans do. And I think that that's what we're offering you is like, yes, take the time in solitude and in isolation to learn who you are and to reclaim your energy and to call all of your energy back from the multitude of things we are like strung out on energetically being tapped into. Just call it all back. And that's one of my like daily practices, is calling all of my energy back, calling it all back, giving it all back, so I can feel the fullness of my energetic body and wake up the next day and I do it again. And so learning that energy hygiene, that's like an energy hygiene practice, is calling all of your energy back, unplugging from like all the outlets that your energy is plugged into. And then still functioning as like a functional human being in this society, you know, and not being ducked off in Never Land and not actually existing in a human way. And so this is where the practice of mastering your energy comes in, because then you're like, okay, wow. I mean, in solitude, you learn even more so how powerful you are, how big your energy is, how capable you are of affecting change. And then you have to go out into society and like learn like the master discernment of when, where, and how to provide that to society and when not, and how to keep your cup full first and foremost. Because if your cup is half full, you're not even functioning as your best self. You don't even know who your best self is. So when your cup is full and you're pouring from overflow, it's a totally different thing, which is all about energy hygiene. Because when you have good energy hygiene practices, your cup is relatively full most of the time. You know, maybe not at the end of every day, your cup is still full, but like for the most part, you're in overflow. And that's where, you know, you're still like in your highest form while still supporting the collective as best as you possibly can.
Yeah, that's so beautifully said, because I know the whole theme of like where we got this idea from is like your energy isn't public property, is because when I first started my path, as I guess I wasn't even fully starting my path yet. I just started to notice when I would go out into the world, I would be completely drained. And I would go to the mall. My mom and my sister would often joke that they can't take me to the mall because within an hour later, I was completely depleted and aching.
I hate the mall.
I know. And I didn't know why. I was so sick. I would get sick from going into public places. And I feel like a lot of the healers wake up and identify as an empath. And as an empath, you realize you go into these public spaces and you're becoming drained by them because you're literally taking everybody's shit and absorbing that. And that very much is our gift as healers, is that we work and alchemize energy. In sessions, we are taking the energy that is distorted and wounded and dense and stagnant, and we are alchemizing that into light. So we are alchemizing that into a higher vibration. But if you're not aware of all of your channels being open, being a sponge, like you're taking on everybody. So then you have to clear your energy and find a way to get back to that overflow with which is what you're discovering. So for a beginner level that is currently experiencing just feeling drained in public spaces, like you got to shield up. You need to visualize like a big golden bubble around you. And sometimes the bubble, like there's so many different things coming at you that you have to re-visualize it when you're out in public, or you need to go excuse yourself and start visualizing the way, like it's different for everybody. For me, like I'll start visualizing my cup being filled with golden energy from the crown of my head and then it filling all the way down through my body. And you have to be able to give yourself enough permission to take those spaces to recharge, because like Solé mentioned, like we are meant to be in overflow, and now we are both at the point where we're just beaming with energy. Like we are overflowing, and sometimes at night, like I have a hard time going to sleep because I have so much energy now. And it's because I reclaimed my energy from all the places that were draining me. So that looks like energetic maintenance is disconnecting from relationships that you're over giving, and it's not an equal energetic exchange, because you are worthy of that in relationships. It either has to be an energetic exchange or you're getting paid for your wisdom. Also, you're worthy of that and deserving of that. But it's also just like having the awareness of different TV shows that are draining you and putting bad things in your subconscious mind, or like even unconsciously scrolling through Instagram, like that also is draining your energy. So you have to be aware of all the different currents and channels and cords that are pulling from you. And like you mentioned, claim that back. And it's also doing that with traumatic experiences that you've had in the past. It's the soul retrieval work, because when you have experienced trauma, your soul, your energy fragments, and it's in those timelines. And so the soul retrieval work is going back to that timeline and reclaiming that aspect for yourself. And it looks just like having a conversation with your past self and just like saying, I reclaim what was taken from me. I reclaim the time that my voice was not allowed to be heard. And I reclaim the times that I was silenced or not appreciated. And you do that with each thing that presents itself in your day-to-day reality.
Mind you guys, this is coming from a mother and a wife. Like this woman, like, you know, it's funny because, you know, in our last episode, we talked about the transition from the maiden to the crone. And what we didn't talk about much was the mother, which is in the middle of those two things. And the mother is very much what we're describing here. Funnily enough, that wasn't planned at all, but it's true that the one who has to kind of work on keeping her cup full very specifically and not being overly giving and overly self-sacrificing, and letting, maybe sometimes you are that, but not always. And, you know, I watch you in that role and finding that for yourself. And, you know, we talk often about, you know, your need for alone time and how do you balance that with your son, like always wanting your time and attention naturally. And I think that that's a big part of it, is like learning, especially as mothers and even women who are not yet mothers, but like still mother society, of how to use this discernment we're describing. And again, coming back to the archetype of just the feminine, and that we have been, again, programmed in many ways to be overly giving and overly available and, you know, hyper sweet and present and nice and helpful and, you know, the healer. And a lot of us women have had to even collapse the healer archetype within us, because it comes with this sort of underlying unspoken assumption that you're always facilitating people, from your close friends to the person you sit next to on the train. And you don't have to do that. And, you know, Ciara and I have actually actively worked that out in our friendship, because we both we're people who did that, you
We
know,
would overly give transmissions.
just like,
and
oh, like, bro, like
we see each other struggling and we want to like,
yes, help
mama bird
facilitate.
them.
Yeah. And that's exactly it. It's the mother archetype, the nurturer, the lover, the helper, the, you know, and that's what we're describing here. And again, nothing wrong with that, but all things in moderation, and let yourself fluctuate from like, actually today I don't have it. I don't have it. And that's okay. You know, I think in healthy relationships, especially female relationships who like to like externally process, if your friend comes to you and is like, can you talk? And you can't, it's okay. Like normalize that. Normalize saying like, I just don't have it today, you know, and letting that even be a part of like a soft, very gentle, energetic boundary where surely they have other friends they can talk to, but also that they know that like, just because they're going through a rough day doesn't mean you as their friend has to be hyper available to that. Obviously, like there's a spectrum to that. If something disastrous, like you might be a bit more available, but if it's just they're having a hard day and you don't have the energetic bandwidth to hold space for that, it's okay.
Yeah. It's okay. And have like the energetic awareness on when you're over asking from your friends too. Like,
For sure.
I feel like we're both at the level where we can just feel it in each other's energy when we shouldn't be like asking for wisdom or for help, or like sometimes we'll take space into responding to messages when, you know, there's days where we need more time for internal processing. So like develop that awareness, become self-aware, be aware of your surroundings, and preserve your energy. I think that's all we have for today.
Yeah, great place to leave it. Hope you guys pick up what we're putting down, and thank you for being here as always. We'll see you next week.
See ya. Thank you.